Are you setting a good example for your students by following Jesus 7 days a week and not just on Sunday? We're going to talk about that and so much more today in the Student Ministry Podcast. Welcome to the Student Ministry Podcast. My name is Steve Cullum, and today we're going to be talking with Tyler Smith. Tyler is a longtime student pastor, but also is an NBA sports writer and the author of a book called Searching for Seven, The Journey of Seeking God 7 Days a Week. So today we're going to be talking with him all about his ministry, how he incorporates sports, and how that all connects with his ministry and great opportunities that God's given him there. And then we're going to talk about his book, Searching for Seven. But before we jump into that, I want to thank you so much for being here. And if you've not shared this podcast with other youth workers who you think might enjoy it, please be sure to do that. And also, if your podcast app or website allows for ratings, please give us a solid rating if you enjoy what you hear. I also want to make sure that you know episode 85, that's the next episode, is going to be a very special one because we're going to be talking about some exciting new directions for this podcast. I won't get into that right now. I'm going to save that all for the next episode, but make sure you definitely tune in for that one because I'm really excited about where we're going moving forward. And we also want to make sure that we thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. G-Shades is a youth ministry curriculum and teaching strategy focused on helping students see every life situation through the lens of the gospel. There's several options to fit everyone with 3 plans to choose from. This curriculum gives you the resources that you need to do what you do better. Do you need message outlines, a discussion guide, and a game? That's just $16 a month. If you're looking for a higher production value, including bumper videos, Instagram devotionals, and parent guides, that's $25 a month. And do you want an affordable youth ministry video curriculum that can help you increase your online reach during this pandemic? G-Shades has you covered for $36 a month. You will not find a better youth ministry video curriculum at that price point anywhere. G-Shades really sets itself apart by helping students see the gospel applies to every life situation that is out there. And if you want to find out more about Mike Haynes, the founder of G-Shades, you can check out episodes 32 and 55 of the Student Ministry Podcast. So go ahead and head over to gshades.org to download Season 3 of G-Shades Youth Ministry Curriculum. And be sure to use the promo code TSMPOD for the Student Ministry Podcast at checkout to get an extra 10% off. gshades.org and use the promo code TSMPOD. G-Shades, seeing life through the lens of the gospel. You can find the link for G-Shades in the podcast show notes. Thanks so much, G-Shades, for sponsoring this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. And with all that being said, let's jump into this conversation with Tyler Smith. Well, hey, Tyler, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Steve, thanks for having me, my fellow Lincoln alum. How's it going?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So your friend Brian Roberts recommended we get you on the podcast, and as I was doing some research on you and reading about your book and all this stuff, I found out we are both alumni of the same Bible college. So that was really cool to find out.
Yep, small world. You just you never know because not a whole lot of people have gone to that college, but pretty cool to find some people, through different avenues after that.
Yeah. So Tyler, I know that you've been in ministry for like over 17 years, I think now, and you've got a book, which we're going to talk about both of those things in just a little bit. But before we jump into that, we'd love to hear your story. Like, how did God get you to the point where you are today?
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed to be able to do a lot of different things. I've got a wife and 2 kids at home. Not sure if you'll hear them in the background or not, but as you said, I've been in youth ministry for 17 years. I also, I'm a basketball sports writer for the Pacers and IU basketball and girls basketball coach. And as you said, had the opportunity to write a book. And I really feel like all those things are connected in some way. They kind of feed into each other. They allow me to do ministry in different areas, different ways. I love how I'm, part of the church, around Christians all the time, but I also have, the Pacers are not a Christian organization. The school that I coach at is not Christian. So I get to kind of combine and go to different environments, which is cool. But my story actually really got started because of basketball. And even though I grew up in a Christian home and I grew up going to church, I was just one of those, kind of fit in Sunday only kind of Christians. And I actually went to Indiana State my freshman year of college. And then God used basketball, of all things, to get me to go to the
Mhm.
cornfield in Illinois. That was like seriously the reason that I went there. I was intrigued by the idea of being around other Christians, but I had no intention of going into ministry. It was straight up play basketball, be around other Christians. This is going to be cool. And then after 1 year of Lincoln, I got a call from a local church saying, "Hey, we want you to start up a youth program here." And I thought it was only going to be a summer thing.
Mhm.
And that was about 17 years ago. I haven't stopped
Nice.
doing it. And so really, I think it was in college that God really got a hold of my heart and helped me understand what it looks like to really, follow him all 7 days a week and pursue that relationship. Still growing, still learning. But as far as, the ministry standpoint, I've been at a few churches since then, but it's been just a wild ride of ups and downs, of course, but just amazing to see how God can use something as crazy as just a game of basketball to, get me into ministry for
Mhm.
almost 2 decades.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and being also a basketball fan, I played through high school, but then playing college soccer, it's so awesome how God uses those things, and that was kind of similar to my story as well. God used soccer to actually get me to Lincoln as well, and kind of convinced me that I needed to go to Bible college and eventually pursue ministry, which is really awesome. That God uses those desires of our hearts a lot of times, and now I kind of not as much into sports as I once was, but kind of grown into like this video game world that has been really just blossomed. And it's really cool how God uses both sports, but also video games and other hobbies that we have to open
Yeah.
doors to interact with non-Christians and be able to get outside of our, church bubble and things like that. So how have you seen all God work through all that, especially now that you work with both college teams and also professional teams?
Yeah, I really just look for opportunities. I'm not, like my sports Twitter account, I'm not going to be having the opportunity to share the gospel, every chance that I would like, but I'm going to have those little moments, those, charity fundraisers and those opportunities. I remember a couple years ago, we did a tweet that talked about raising awareness for Wheeler Mission in Indianapolis. And for like every retweet, there was going to be some money raised. And overall, I think there was like a couple 100,000 people saw the tweet and clicked on Wheeler Mission. And so they can kind of, you just look for those kind of moments. Plus, it's the people that you meet, so the different sports writers, the different fans, how you interact with them. So it's not necessarily evangelizing to NBA player, but the people that you meet along the way, and then coaching in the high school. All the team knows who I stand for and what I'm about, and there's been a lot of opportunities there just for prayer or conversations. And I would just encourage everybody that, again, as you mentioned, video games or teaching or your workplace, whatever, just look for those little moments where you can, be a light for somebody.
Yeah, that's huge. And being able to model that for our students, we're asking them, hey, reach out to your peers wherever you go, wherever God takes you. And if we're not doing that as their leaders, then we're kind of, it's only a, hey, do what I say and not as I do sort of thing. So that's great that you have plenty of opportunities to, model that for your students as well. And before we jump into ministry, I'd love to I'm sure being in student ministry for 17 years now, the competition sometimes that happens between sports and church and everything. How do you navigate all that? What's your thoughts on that? Because you're also in the sports world very much yourself.
Yeah, it's a fine line because I think, you don't want to be one of those, like we want to reach the culture. So even if you have certain convictions or certain beliefs, you want to still meet people where they are. And so I would never, go to my youth group and say, I can't believe you went to your game instead of, this, or I can't believe you are, care so much about that. When I'm thinking about, my high school self, and even though sports weren't as crazy then, I was still, crazy myself, being in
Mm-hmm.
athletics. But just try to meet them where they are and try to plan accordingly, sometimes I think some of the bigger churches have the luxury at times of just saying, here's when the event is, come if you can. So, medium size or maybe some smaller churches, you have to be a little more strategic at times about check the calendars, check the events, and don't plan your big events when something big in the community or sports world is going on. And then try to, partner with parents and walk alongside them as far as, how can I serve you and make sure that your student can be able to do sports, but also make church a priority. And it's tough. I don't remember who said it. I think it was a couple of years ago. I heard someone on a podcast talk about how when they are part of a team, they really feel like they're needed. Like if you're not there, your team is going to be let down and like you need to be there. So how do we as a church and youth group come across as we need you here? You're part of this team and you're missed when you're gone, and try to convey those ideas for them.
Yeah. I love that. And I know, like you said, some larger churches maybe not have the convenience of being able to do that, but smaller churches do have the ability to, like, let's say, someone's got a game at the same night as youth group. What does it look like to move your youth group to go support that student instead and go to them? I think what you're saying is being proactive, looking at the school calendar, talking to parents, talking to students ahead of time is huge, instead of just reacting, going, oh, they scheduled another game on top of my program, but instead being proactive and being out there. That's huge. So let's talk about your ministry. What does your ministry currently look like with students?
Yeah, this may be kind of a cliche answer, but I've always wanted my student ministry to follow the Acts 2 model, just because I want, my students to be, a part of many different things. I do think some churches, maybe they don't focus enough on what they're good at and they try to do everything, and you can't do everything. But in terms of, I want my students to be able to break bread together and pray together, serve together, not just go to the churches, but home to home. Like in the early church, they were so amazing in what they did and the model that they set for us that, that's what I hope that my youth groups have. I want all of that. So we do try to mix things up. Like right now, during the school year, we have a Sunday night program, which is our big program. We do the CIY thing. On a Sunday night, we do the worship and short message, games and snacks and all that good stuff. But I think the most important thing is the small group time. And as much as youth pastors, including myself at times, have believed that, it's my message that's going to, win the salvations and, just be a revolutionary moment of the evening. They're very important, those messages, to kind of set up small group time, but that time where they get to discuss scripture and, wrestle with questions and that's probably what they're going to remember the most and what they're going to learn from the most. But summer looks a lot different for a lot of people, I'm sure, mission work. And we're going to do a thing this year called Jonah and Java. And we're going to drink some coffee, and we're going to look at the story of Jonah through the Bible Project Classroom, which is a great new resource that is free. And they do a deep dive, and it's going to make you, if you haven't seen that, it's going to make you feel like Bible college again. But it's really cool what they do. And but just trying to meet them where they are. And I've really been blessed over the years. I know a lot of youth pastors, they don't stay at one place too long, but I was at my first one for over 6 years, the next one for almost 4. And then I've been at this one for over 8. So I've been blessed to and it's actually the church I grew up in, where I am now in Indiana. So pretty cool, but a chance to, kind of lay a foundation and be part of something long-term. And I think of my group now and how different it is from my first group that I had, or even a group of 5 years ago, even at the same church. The dynamics and of course age and gender and what they're into, all of it changes. You got to be able to adapt to it, and we try our best to meet them where they're at, as Christ does for us.
That's cool. So you do Sunday night programming. Are your middle schoolers and high schoolers together, or how does that work out?
They are a little bit. It kind of depends on numbers and different times of the year, but at times we will meet together for, the worship and sometimes the message before breaking them up. And then we do a lot of separate events. Sunday mornings is more of a Bible study, class time before the worship service, and
Mm.
they're split typically for that.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I know that's kind of one of the things that I feel like has changed over the years and even in the current church where I'm at, like for 5 years, we've done it so many different ways since I've been here. And of course, COVID, helped so much in some of those things. But yeah, currently we have kind of a hybrid kind of model as well, where sometimes we're together, sometimes we're not, but we do meet on the same nights on Sunday nights as well. Yeah, putting a lot more emphasis on small groups as well. I found that kind of what you said is like, even those nights where I have an amazing sermon, I put so many hours into it and have it like 100% memorized, and I delivered it amazingly. They only remember some stupid story I told.
Yep.
But the stuff they remember in those small groups are key. And those are actually leading to transformation in their lives and everything. So that's really cool. So you wrote a book recently. Tell us about Searching for Seven.
Yeah, part of the idea behind that was to combine my experience with sports writing and then, the times of ministry over the years. I feel like there's a lot of stories, a lot of crazy ups and downs in life that God has taught me a lot. So I was hoping to, kind of share that and be an encouragement to others. But yeah, the tagline is the journey of seeking God 7 days a week. So I'm still on that pursuit. What does it look like to follow him all 7 days, not just Sunday? I do think this book is for all ages, or maybe 12 and up. It's not a youth ministry specific book, but I know of a lot of churches that have treated it that way, whether they're, student leader teams have gone through it together, or small groups, anything like that. It's a quick enough read that could be a daily devotion type deal in the 19 chapters. It's got discussion questions, covers a lot of topics, but I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Goff, but he was my inspiration in terms of writing style, like a lot of stories, short chapters, a lot of scripture that goes with what God taught you through it. So, but I think part of it is just this idea that, and I think students and adults are both, and this is true for all of us, that too many people, want God to show up, but they don't really do anything to seek him. And he absolutely pursues us and does everything he can to make himself known to us. But we need to look to him in all things, Colossians 3, whatever we do, whatever we're doing, do with all our heart, working for the Lord, not for men. And so my hope is this book, it kind of helps you, if you're a student, you're looking for God in your friendships and sports teams and workplace and classroom. And I, again, as I said earlier, for me as a student growing up, Christian was just kind of a part of my life. If there was like a pie chart, it would have been like, student and athlete and boyfriend and baseball player and likes music, and Christian, like as one of the pie chart, one of the pieces of the pie. It was just another part of my life. Didn't realize till later it should have been the entire pie as Christian, follower of Christ, child of God, and then the other stuff can kind of fit within that circle. So
right.
Yeah, trying to figure out the whole 7 day a week following Christ thing, walking with God is the heart behind it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I think it's huge. Like what you're talking about now and what you're able to do is, bring Christ into every aspect of your life. It doesn't have to be, a churchy thing. You bring, Jesus wants to go with us every day, every time. I've talked to a lot of youth pastors recently, and it seems like a lot of us are focusing or trying to turn our focus a lot more to discipleship. To me, it seems like this book could be an excellent resource as you're discipling your leaders or your students, or maybe even parents. Do you kind of see that as a discipleship kind of resource as student pastors or pastors in general could use this in that way?
I do. Yeah. It's one of the three categories that has kind of been, that it was put in from the publisher, I guess, was discipleship. So I think, I also think it's kind of different walks of life, and you can see some of the reviews online of how some people are seasoned Christians and then some are like kind of newer, but I think there's something in there for each. And a lot of it, again, is just my own walk, trying to figure out, hey, with this topic, as I said, there's 19 different chapters, but with this particular topic, what has God taught me? Here's a story that goes with it. And, how can I seek God with all my heart within this today? And yeah, it's just, that's the goal. So it's been helpful for me as well, just to go back through and, a lot of people with the first book that they write, it's kind of like most of your life. I mean, not everything, but I've got examples from high school, college, some from 2 years ago. And, but again, I look at it, I'm just like, man, it's incredible what God has taught me through all these different things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you ever think you'd be writing a book someday?
I had an idea,
Yeah.
but I wasn't really sure what it was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've done other resources. I've got a DVD series, and I have a lot of blogging and things of that nature.
Okay.
But I think it was maybe end of 2018 when I was like, it's time. I've been keeping notes and writing chapter ideas, but it's time to commit to this. And spent the next year taking some time off to do it. So really
Nice.
cool experience. I encourage anyone, if you have any kind of passion at all for, even as you're writing messages, trying to compile and make, could this be a cohesive topic, and then go for it, because you
Yeah.
never know.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. I remember talking to my former church, my former lead pastor. And I remember thinking about like halfway through one of his longer series that he was doing, it was like, man, you could turn this into a book. And I was encouraging him to do that. It was like, because it's something that, yeah, it's cohesive thoughts that just kind of build on each other week after week. And like, this could be a great book as well. So that's a great encouragement. And yeah, it's something, I mean, in that you're also encouraging me, because I've always thought like at some point I'm probably supposed to write something down, but I don't know what. And it's the thought of it is just incredibly daunting. I write blogs that are, just a few hundred words. Like that's my length of writing, or messages that are only, a couple thousand words or something like that. But my wife is
Those
the
could
writer.
be chapters.
That
So
could be. Yeah.
Try to think in terms of that if you do come up with that topic, then everything kind of flows from that point on. So I had the idea of, following God 7 days a week, but didn't have a title until probably 5 or 6 chapters of writing in. So some stuff comes later, but yeah, I think a couple blog pieces turned into parts of a couple chapters. So
that's cool.
It's very possible.
That's awesome. Well, Tyler, I know you've had many, many years of ministry experience, so I'm sure God has taught you a lot over the years. I'd love to give you a chance just to share some tips or encouragements to the other youth workers that are listening to this podcast. What would you like to say to them in terms of a tip or encouragement?
Yeah, the thing that came to my mind for student pastors, a couple of things. I would encourage you to stop comparing yourself to others, first of all, and stop caring who gets the credit about good ideas or teaching points or any of that stuff other than God himself. Because I think back to early in my ministry, I was very hung up on comparison. Even out of Bible college, I would think, how did that person get that job, or how did that church hire this guy, or why is that church doing better than ours? Why do they have such a big budget? And I would have these horrible thoughts that I think we all struggle with in our workplaces or whatever, parts of our life. But now, I find great joy in, just being part of what God is doing. And I think also when I said, stop caring who gets the credit, I would have a problem with that too years ago. And I'm not saying I'm perfect now, but if a kid would, credit somebody else, and I'm like, I taught you that. What do you mean? Or you go to CIY or camp and you're like, I can't believe the speaker told us to read the Bible. And I'm like, I've been telling you that for 4 years,
right.
But I would, joke about it. But inside I'm like, why can't, they need to hear this stuff, or why are they coming and hearing these messages and then not really living it out? And I would just have these issues with some of that. But now I find great joy if a student posts something or says something and they're like, I don't know where I got this from, but I don't really care anymore. I'm just happy that they got it, getting it, and again being a small part of their life. And part of that too, I think, is this helps you celebrate other Christians and other churches. We're on the same team. Last year I started to try to remember that every time I'm driving and I see a church, to pray for it, like a quick prayer. And that means a whole lot of prayers where I'm from, because there's 3,000 churches within a 3-mile radius. But yeah, just that, that posture of we're on the same team. Say that quick prayer, and helps me to stay focused on the mission. And it's not about my church or my ministry or my ideas. It's about the kingdom. And so that you could talk just about that topic for days, but
yeah,
don't compare yourself to others, good or bad. It's a trap either way. And then don't care who gets the credit, and know that you're planting and watering seeds in kids' lives that may sustain them that day. It may come back 5 years later. You just don't know, but keep fighting the good fight.
That's good. That's good. It wasn't too long ago when I had a kid come to our youth group from another youth group in town. And one of the first things they said when they came was, oh, my other youth group has a better 9 square or something like that. And it was just instantly like trying to like play that comparison game. And I was like, I know you're a youth pastor. I'm going to talk to him. And so I told him, he's like, that kid, I can't believe that. But I think that's huge because like, especially, I mean, like being in the sports world, everything's built around competition. Everything's built around comparison. And in our world today, like we're just bred to do that. Like one school's better than another, one team's better than another. So you naturally think one church is better than another, or one Christian is better than another, one pastor is better than another, all that sort of thing. So what has been helpful for you to get past that point, or to start working past that point? Because I love what you're saying, but maybe a little more practical of like, how does one actually get to that point?
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage to do even the prayer thing, because it's similar to, if you're praying for somebody that doesn't like you, it's going to be hard to hate that person if you're praying for them when you come before God. So just be honest with that. Try to do things where you work with other churches. Sometimes they'll say no. We do a thing around here called Unite Seville, and we've had 15 or so youth groups combined, and it's been amazing. And there's still that little voice that's like, yeah, but like 80 churches didn't. Where are they at? They're missing out, but why do they think they shouldn't, but no, focus, like celebrate. You got to celebrate what you're doing. And again, big churches, small churches, if there's 5 people at an event and it's life-changing for somebody, then you're doing incredible work. For me, it was when I started having kids who are, one just turned 5, one's turning 3 next week. That also, changes things, but obviously can't just, tell everybody to go have kids. But I think, continue your prayer and your scripture reading, but find some people that you can do ministry with. And again, that could be long distance. It could be Zoom or phone calls or whatever, but help remind each other. That's a big thing for me, is some guys and girls in my life that have kind of, we remind each other what we're doing. This is kingdom work that really has very, very, very little to do with us, if anything at all. And, celebrate more instead of criticize and compare.
That's really good. That's really good. I love what God does in my heart when I do pray for others. Like all of a sudden it gets the focus totally off of me. And like you said, networking, that's huge as well. So that's awesome. Tyler, I know people are going to want to connect with you. I know they're going to want to, follow up with some questions, maybe read what you have, maybe check out your book. Where's the best place for people to connect with you online, get your book and follow up with any questions they have?
Probably the book's website, which is searchingfor7.com. Because even if you don't want the book, there's other links in there as far as blog page, contact info. Personal blog page is tylerdsmith.net. And then I've got such a common name that I can't just say, look me up on Facebook. You may be able to find me, but
yeah, I know Tyler, at least 3 or 4 other Tyler Smiths. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, most people I meet say I know one of those. So yeah, I'd say those places, and then other resources, including the book. But would love to just connect to chat with someone if they have questions or need encouragement as well.
Cool. Well, Tyler, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. Thanks for all that you're doing for the kingdom within student ministry and ministry at large. And God bless all that you're doing.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks again, Tyler, and thanks again to all of you for being here for this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast. Be sure to head over to our show notes and check out all the links for how to connect with Tyler, how to get his book, Be sure to get it, read it, share it with others. And while you're at it, share this podcast with others in ministry who you think would enjoy this conversation. You can also check out the link to our sponsor for this episode of the Student Ministry Podcast, and that's G-Shades, gshades.org, and use the promo code TSMPOD to receive 10% off your order. Thanks so much, G-Shades, for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to check out their curriculum and their teaching strategy. It's really top-notch. So that brings us to the end of this episode. We are so grateful that you were here. Be sure to share it with others, and be sure to check back in at the next episode when we share some really exciting news about the future of this podcast and so much more. I feel like God's got some really big plans in store, and I'm so excited to share them with you, and I hope you're really excited to hear about them. Until then, God bless your ministry.